Where was
The Rings of Power, Game of Thrones.
fell? Where was
The Rings of Power.
when our enemies closed in around us?
What's up, voices that live in my head? Nice to see you all again. The Rings of Power, Amazon's long-awaited show set in the Lord of the Rings universe during the Second Age, has finally released its first few episodes. But are they any good, or did Jeffrey spend $500 million destroying one of the most beloved worlds of fiction ever created? Well, that bit I put in at the beginning probably spoils my thoughts on it a little bit, but I'm really enjoying the show so far, for the most part. I want to be very clear that when I saw this show get announced, I immediately thought it was going to be terrible. Then I saw the trailer, and when it was underwhelming as fuck, I wrote this show off even more. So when it came out, I went into it expecting it to be awful, and with the perspective that I would be making a critique pointing out all of its flaws. But 5 minutes into the first episode, that shit flew right out the window. Boom, right away we get a call back to the movies, Galadriel giving us a badass monologue over some flutes and shit, then boom, war with some orcs, boom, now she's fighting a troll, boom, Hobbits is in this too. They invoke a sense of nostalgia from the movies and books that we all loved, but they don't use it as a crutch to distract people from the fact that the show is ass. They use it subtly in the background and prove that the show itself is actually pretty damn good. It pays respect to the source material where it can, while also separating itself and forming its own identity. Now, I'll be completely honest, the show does have some problems, but in my opinion, the good far outweighs the bad so far. I've watched the first 2 episodes twice now, but in this video I'll only be talking about the first one and only mundane parts of the episode to avoid spoiling anything major while still being able to give examples of what the show does well. First up, let's talk the special effects. God damn, they've been real good so far. This show reportedly cost between $500 million and $1 billion just for season 1, and I'm glad to report it really shows. There's a scene in episode 1 where Galadriel fights a snow troll, and everything from the CGI to the choreography, acting, and camera work, as well as the sound design and editing all came together to create a great opening fight scene for the series. But it's not just here that the CGI shines. It is every goddamn scene. I mean, the Elven capital looks flawless. Look at this shit right now. And when I say every scene, I mean pretty much every scene. There's so much cool fantasy shit to see in this show that even if everything else about it sucked, that alone would be worth watching it for. But luckily, it comes with a pretty great show attached as a bonus. Even the fucking waterfalls look real, and apparently that's really difficult to pull off with CGI. The acting and writing are both very good so far in my opinion, like this part here with these Hobbit kids. This one pulls her friend through the fence, and she eats it, taking a puddle of mud to the fucking dome piece. I expected this to turn into one of those cringe kid scenes where she gets all huffy and chases her friend down, inevitably landing them in some dangerous situation that they just barely escape from, but instead, she just looks up at her and goes, "Enchanting." It both surprised me and made me laugh. Then they just fuck off and eat some berries. It's awesome. What a perfect character intro. Just a small, seemingly insignificant moment that creates such real feeling and meaningful characters. This is unironically one of my favorite scenes in episode 1. But this is far from the only great scene in this episode. Without spoiling anything, I will just say that I find the actors and actresses they chose for the roles of people who already existed in Tolkien's world were cast very well. Marfeed Clark does a great job as a younger Galadriel, not to mention Robert Aramayo as Elrond, who has done a great job as well thus far. But the returning characters aren't the only ones who shine. Markella Cavendish does an amazing job as Nori, a young hobbit who does not appear in Tolkien's work, with a spirit much akin to Bilbo and Frodo. This elf dude and human girl are also very interesting so far. Elf Dude's character is written really well, and Ismael Cordova does a great job acting. I also have to give the writers props because writing dialogue in Shakespearean style and having it not sound cheesy is really hard to do, but they've managed to pull it off so far, at least for the most part.
When you cross over, you hear a song, one whose memory we all carry. And you are immersed in a light more intoxicating than any sensation in all of Middle-earth.
Ha! Gay!
There was only a few things in episode 1 that I wasn't really a huge fan of, and they were just minor nitpicks that really didn't take away from the enjoyment at all. For example, the scene at the end where Galadriel changes her mind about going to the west and nopes the fuck out right before they enter the light portal thing. It made sense for the dramatic integrity of the scene, but she just stranded herself in the middle of the night, in the middle of the fucking Pacific, with no semblance of a clue of how she's going to get back to Middle-earth, which is presumably pretty fucking far considering this map. I know, it's minor, and like I said, it didn't detract from the enjoyment, at least for me. Now, let's talk about some inconsistencies in terms of the Silmarillion. For those who don't know, the story that they're telling in part takes place in that book, but the show doesn't have the rights to the characters, meaning one of the most important shots in the first episode, the death of the Great Tree, is not accurate to the book. In my opinion, it's not a problem because, as I said before, the writers have done enough to create a separate identity for the show, though I have seen some diehard fans complaining online that the show is garbage because of small things that they changed from the original work. And to them I would say, what the fuck did you expect? It's an adaptation of the world Tolkien created, not a retelling of what he originally wrote, which they don't even have the rights to. Overall, I'm very excited to see where they take this show, and honestly think that it alone warrants getting Prime Video, so if you're on the fence about watching it, I would say definitely check it out. I think if you're a fan of Tolkien's work, you'll really enjoy it, as long as you recognize beforehand that there are going to be differences from the original. It's faithful to the source material where it can be, and also implements enough creativity to separate itself from both Tolkien's books and Peter Jackson's movies, feeling like something new baked out of something that we all love. Overall, so far, I would give the show a 7 out of 10, with optimism that it will only get better as the characters and story become more developed. So with all that being said, thanks for watching, everyone. Now, get the fuck out of here and go watch The Rings of Power. I'll be seeing ya.